You gotta plan it better. This is Death of a Unicorn. I was really excited to see this one. I had been tracking when it was going to premiere. I even, for a hot second, considered going to South by Southwest to see the world premiere of it. That is not in my capabilities, really, but I did fantasize about doing that. Needless to say, I was very excited and had largely anticipated seeing this movie, but I didn't have the biggest expectations based on reviews mostly. I didn't look at like spoilers or anything, but people didn't seem to be blown away by it, so I did lower my expectations upon going, and I liked it, but it could have been great, and I think that's why I was extra critical of it. But this is a directorial debut by Alex Scarfman, so I always applaud that, especially with having it be with A24, big name actors in it. Seemed like a highly supported project. It was ambitious, so I'm thrilled by what he has accomplished, and I would definitely like to see what else he would do. First, I want to say this video will have spoilers. I'm going to talk about aspects of the movie, specifically about what I did and didn't like. So if you haven't seen it, or if you love spoilers, be wary. So this is my humble opinion on what I think they could have done differently to make this movie amazing. First, I want to say a lot of people hated the unicorn design, and I suppose I understand why a little bit, just because, I mean, this was a monster movie, and if you weren't expecting it to be that, you could be disappointed by the monsters. That is the unicorn. Yeah, a lot of people had issue with the unicorn design. I don't know if that's historically or just personal preference, or they wanted them to be nice unicorns. I'm not really sure, but I loved them. Some people said they were ugly. I get where they're coming from. I feel like the baby unicorn was like the ugliest, but the team made real unicorns, or they made fake unicorns, really. They made those props, and I always give props to people who actually made them. Like, it wasn't all CGI. They had some real handmade things in there, and I think I could tell that, and I liked them more because of it. So the baby looked a little funny, but its parents fucking slayed. They were incredible. They were horse-like and like big cat-like with their growls and their teeth, and the horn design was really great. I was all for a goth emo unicorn. I signed up for that. That's what got me intrigued about this. I want to not like a unicorn for a while, and yet still be on the unicorn side. That was a fun premise to explore, but I will say a lot of this movie was very predictable. For me to know, I gotta stop watching trailers, honestly, but for me to know, just watching the trailer, it's gonna be fuck the rich guy who wants to exploit the magical creature movie, and I'm gonna hate those people, and I'm gonna be rooting for the unicorn, and the unicorn is probably gonna slay in the end after some hardship, and it was essentially that. The movie was extremely predictable because I think it took a classic trope of many monster movies that have, like, you have a set of characters, you need one subplot that is emotional to drive the story, as well as having just a fun monster movie, try to survive the night type of thing. It was one of those. Now, I particularly like this genre because I like magical realism, I believe is what it's called, where everything is set in reality, but one or two or a few things are happening in that reality that are otherworldly, and this is quite literally that, with having magical creatures that everyone is aware don't really exist, but now they exist. That's one of my favorite things, to use them as kind of like a metaphor to propel an emotional narrative usually is what's best. So this movie, at its spirit, at its core, was definitely trying to do that, but it fell short. And you can do this type of monster movie too, where it doesn't have a lot of emotional depth to it, but it doesn't need it, and you can just enjoy the brutal killings by a unicorn. But I think this movie was trying to drive down two lanes, and it couldn't really pick one. To its detriment, didn't have them mash. So I hate to be a hater. I don't hate this movie. I quite liked it, but its shortcomings were evident and sad. It was sad for me because it could have been great. So I try not to look at many reviews before I come to my own conclusion about one, but I did end up seeing a few. Some people said Jenna Ortega did really good, but was given poor dialogue, so I was like fully expecting it to be poorly written. And I actually didn't really have a problem with how it was written. I do think they tried hard to make accurate and realistic pretty much archetypes though, and I didn't go like, oh, this is poorly written in that aspect. I would rather have good dialogue and a bad plot. It didn't have great memorable dialogue, but it wasn't bad by any means. I quite enjoyed it, and it was, on top of being a monster movie, a heavy talking movie as well, just because you have a clashing of social and economic classes at the forefront. That being said though, they kind of barely scratched the surface with these characters, or only chose one thing to really focus on, so those characters were just that. They were shallow in a way. I honestly didn't care about pretty much anyone. I cared about the unicorns. I obviously cared about Ridley because she is the one that we are supposed to identify with and root for. But like, I don't know, I didn't love any of them. I don't even remember their names. Let me look. Okay, Paul Rudd Elliott. A lot of people said this is the least likable he's ever been. I don't really care about that. Like, if you're playing an unlikable character after playing a likable character for so long, I applaud you. You had range. It was good. You were not likable. But I still think he was very much so a cliche. Didn't understand his daughter. Money focused, career focused. His daughter is informed and edgy because of it. They had a tragic thing in their past, and like, that's all they have now. I don't know, it was a good setup. I enjoyed like the plane scene. They did a good job at setting up these characters, but then that was it. And then I asked myself, do I need more than that in this type of movie? Horror, comedy? No, I don't really need a lot of character arcs and stuff. But since they did make an effort to do that with Ridley's mom dying, and that being like the main focus side plot of this movie, I wanted it because it was there, and I wanted to really care for these people and hope they repair their relationship in an organic way or very unorganic way. But I just didn't care. I just didn't really care. They weren't super intriguing. And then the rich people that you're supposed to hate, that you do hate, everyone was a good actor. That wasn't really the problem. Will Poulter as Shepard? I don't remember that. Shepard? Will Poulter stand out. But that wasn't surprising at all. I love him. He's great. He was definitely the funniest. I mean, if it weren't for him, this would almost not be a comedy. I loved any scene that he was in and what he was gonna do. His parents, I don't even care. I don't even know what to say about them. They suck, and they're supposed to suck. So they were just there a lot, sucking. I don't know. I loved the husband. What's your name? Odell. I like that name. I loved Odell's death. Saw it coming as well, but very satisfying. They also had a weird mix of gore, like what they would show and what they wouldn't show, which was kind of odd. Gore is really in right now. Like, even in mainstream, gore is in. So we had the gore. The gore didn't really make me feel much of anything besides like the ruthlessness of these creatures, which I liked because they were literally fulfilling their destiny from the tapestry. So that was nice. But it also didn't really do much for me. Wasn't sad about the first scientist dying. I was kind of sad about the girl scientist dying. Just because I like Sunita Mani. But I knew from the beginning this was going to turn into everyone we don't like slowly being picked off by these unicorns dying and then having a happy ending. And it was so predictable that it was almost boring. And then I was like, why is this boring? Because it's such a cool premise. I love the actors and the magical creatures in it. I wish I was having an absolute blast. I think they should have chose a lane. It could have been strictly a creature feature where, to hell with realistic plot, you have this monstrous thing and go like balls to the walls crazy, like have a pumped up soundtrack, do more of the weird mystical stuff, like pump up the grit. Or they could have kept it at the same pace that they had it at and then dig way deeper into characters. Don't go the traditional route of a pain in the past that we were never a part of. The audience doesn't know and is just in inferring from conversation. They at least did pretty good at not explaining exposition with dialogue. Like, I mean, they did, like, mom died, we're sad, and we don't have a good relationship about it. They didn't explicitly say that, so good on them. But it was like, okay, they have turmoil from the past, and I don't know. Just like, I would give the example of Everything Everywhere All at Once. That is balls to the wall crazy. I mean, high bar, I'm saying. But this had the potential to go somewhere like this. Everything Everywhere All at Once is really a simple premise. It's a relationship between a mother and daughter, so very similar to Death of a Unicorn, that is not good. They don't understand each other, and the family is dealing with their small business and taxes and the relationship between husband and wife and a kid. You know, see the movie, yeah. Just the inner workings of a family. Premise, very simple. They need to understand each other to mend their relationship. And then this otherworldly thing happens, magical realism, that aids putting their life into perspective. And they have one of the most touching arcs and relationship mending ever, and it's fantastic. And Death of a Unicorn is kind of trying to do that very small scale, but it basically boils down to eat the rich and, you know, listen to your daughter sometimes. And even though I love Eat the Rich, like, yes, literally slice through them. They suck. I knew they would suck. It was just, that's all it was. That's all it is. Took the dad, honestly, forever to put aside his obsession with his career, and in the end he's like, oh, I did it for you because I thought that was the best way that I could honor your mom's wishes and protect you, was make money so we never had to worry about anything again. And then they hug like they finally understand each other, and like, oh well, I love, like, I was honestly shocked when she was like crying and accepted that as like their meaningful conclusion to their conflict. It wasn't really believable, and I still didn't really care about the dad, and it just felt forced. So either that part of the movie didn't need to be in there at all, and we could have just enjoyed this crazy comical twist on unicorn creatures and just like had fun with it, more like a horror movie would, or they really had to beef up that emotional arc because it was not there, and it felt almost unnecessary then, or like a second thought. This movie felt like, man, I had a cool idea about what if you killed a unicorn by accident? What would happen? What would you do? Like, that's the premise. And then they're like, well, we can't just make a movie about that. It has to mean something more. And so they got the mending a familial bond that could only be from this insane experience, coming close to death and finally finding your morals. But it didn't really work. All that to say, I don't really care. I don't really care. For selfish personal reasons, I wish it was a better movie just because I fucking love the unicorns. I love this type of movie. I also can compare this to a bad movie that I love that I will probably make a video about at some point, but Nerve. I love the movie Nerve. It's literally on my top 4 on Letterboxd, and it's a bad movie. I compare it to Nerve because Nerve is absolutely ridiculous. There's nothing magical about it, but it's like this stupid game that's happening, and like the characters are cliches, and it's just kind of like a carefree, I'm watching this on a random day type of movie. But I think it's so fun for like no good reason, just like it's entertaining enough. And Death of a Unicorn hit a lot of the same mediocre but fun vibes. It just was like a little bit boring on top of it, and that kills this type of movie. It could have been so fun and also so shallow, but it was neither. Also, I must point out another reason I take issue with it is because the lore wasn't fully thought out. Like, they changed colors at the end. The unicorns, they're now white. And I was like, oh, that's cool. The baby's white. So like, I was wondering about that. Didn't explain it. Doesn't have to, because like, they don't know why that would happen either. They were learning about the unicorns just as we were. But like, what is that? What is that? I don't like things, my wife pointed out after. I don't like things that don't have a reasonable explanation for it. So my other thing that this movie did that is a pet peeve of mine is when it's suddenly daylight. It's daytime now. The end scene scene, it's still dark out, it's still night. I have a sense of how much time is passing because we see everything basically shot by shot in real time, because it's almost a slasher where everyone's dying one after the other. Like, that's the presence we're in. And then they just cut to it's morning now. Apparently that lasted all night, even though it didn't. And now it's daytime and Ridley falls out a window or something. And that was funny that she acted that well and it was funny, but I'm like, okay, what was she doing? And her dad is running outside now with the horn, just casually, like this unicorn could have easily killed it by now. And where were they? And they've just been running around until the sun came up. I hate that. It feels like bad writing. It's like, okay, the end scene is in the morning. For what? So it looks better? Like, you gotta plan it better. And I know, like, I shouldn't really care about that, but like, I'm thinking about it in the movie. I was like, oh, it's daytime now. I hate when they do that, and they did it. And like, we knew all along that Ridley was gonna be the pure of heart one. Like, she had an obvious connection with the unicorns, so it was absolutely no surprise that the twist is he figured that out, and that's how they're gonna get them to friggin' lay down and be tied up. That was bizarre as well. Like, I just don't understand. And we don't need to understand. Like in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, it was nonsense. It didn't have to make sense because they had a clear direction and goal and narrative that they were propelling. And this one was just kind of fun. It was just kind of a fun idea that didn't work out all its kinks before saying action. And I take issue with that from a writer's perspective. But again, whatever. I'm gonna watch it again. You've seen my other videos. I've had this painting behind me forever. Haven't finished it, but it gets progressively more worked on in some of these videos. And I am an artist, and I loved the unicorn so much that I want to make a realistic oil painting of the dad one. The wife, you could tell male and female, because the dad was like, whew, and the wife was pretty. She's kind of pretty at the end there. I love them both. I would paint any of them, but I want especially to make a painting of the dad unicorn. Maybe a small one. I just loved them. They were so cool. And if on top of it, if you didn't think that they were cool, you're gonna like this movie even less. But the unicorn design, they were for me. They were for me and my homies. I don't say that. I don't know why I said that. But we loved it. My computer is screaming at me now, so I should wrap this up. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 and probably like a B-. I'm biased, so B- C+ range. Gotta say props. It was well edited, constructed movie, but its downfalls were hard to overlook. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and tell me what you did and didn't like about this movie. Yeah. And then there's